Got it. We are being told
Okay,
that we are
I'm sorry.
recorded.
Does anybody else got a robot lady telling them the recording's in process, or just me?
It's all of us for sure.
Okay, no, because Mary wasn't getting it. She says that she thinks I'm crazy.
I don't
No,
get it. I don't get this message.
You're lucky. You know, it's very.
Oh my
it's pretty
God.
robotic.
You don't get, no, I don't get the robot lady. I swear. Every time Drew is like, oh, yes, robot lady. And I'm like, who are you talking to?
All this time, she thought I was just making up some fiction. Anyways, we're getting so off topic already. Welcome to Carrying Wayward, a supernatural podcast for fans who aren't ready to let go and newcomers to the series who are ready to jump in. I'm Drew Schulman.
And I'm Marie Vigourou. In this episode, we're doing a recap of Supernatural Season 2 through the theme of family. Let's get this show on the road.
One of these days, the next segment here will be us like actually pulling out instruments and like rocking out, but I can't play an instrument, so I don't know how we're gonna do that.
Oh my goodness. No, I can't play instruments either. But well, from what I understand, the voice is an instrument, and it would be time for you to use yours to do your recap. Look at this smooth transition.
So I think you challenged me to 3 minutes, which I think is
3
fair.
minutes. Yeah, it's a
And,
season recap, so we figured that like 3 minutes sounds like a good idea.
I'm ready. I may have done a little bit of pre-planning to make sure I was ready for it, but if
That's
you want to count me
fine.
down.
Of course. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we open the season up with Dean being dead, apparently, and John making a deal, thus losing them the Colt and losing them a John. And they're back at their regular hunting game. Dean now with a terrible secret, and Sam kind of more gung-ho to go after things. And what do we face this season? Ahem. First, the Reaper in a hospital gown, then a spook dressed as a clown, saves some vamps who chose not to kill, now a zombie raised against her will. Then it's Obi-Wan and his evil twin, followed by H.H. Holmes, who got boxed in. Is it a Spectre? Nope, just a corrupt cop. Then a deal at the crossroads. They must stop. A disease from demons, for some reason, and Gordon is back, declaring it's Sam's season. Little ghost who needs his sister to fill the void, and a bank robbing shapeshifter, not a mandroid. A spirit who thinks he's doing God's work. Meg is back for Sam, making him go berserk. A trickster god fooled them all and got away. Next, a double ghost. Kind of a happy ending, yay? Werewolves, be not so hairy, but made us all really cry. Followed by an upset writer who summoned Ghost. He wasn't a very nice guy. A prison nurse who thought she was right. And a dream crafting djinn who said goodnight. Finally, Yellow Eyes and his soldier Jake, both shot dead before daybreak. And at the end of the season, we have Joe becoming a hunter full-time officially, even though Ellen's not really a big fan of it. More demon activity, including a new possible child of Yellow Eyes. Dean reveals John told him that he may have to kill Sam. Sam gets moody and runs off. Dean promises that he'll kill him, I guess. Doesn't really matter because, well, Sam gets killed in their own version of the Hunger Games, Demon Soldier Edition. Dean brings him back by making a crossroads deal, and they finally kill Yellow Eyes, avenging their mom. Time.
1 minute and 10 seconds left, and this was delightful. Delightful. Oh my God. Wow.
I'm very proud of my writing for that one.
You get a slow clap. I'm sorry. Like
I'll accept it. I now fear I put myself in a loop where I have to one-up myself every season now with this.
You have set the bar very high, sir. Very high.
Let's just say I'm really worried for what season 15 is going to make me do.
There will be costumes.
I'm thinking like dream ballet.
Yes, I love this. A full opera. Yes, absolutely. A full opera. I agree.
Okay.
Shall we?
Did I miss anything in the recap?
Honestly, I think I was too busy like being enchanted by the rhymes. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know if you missed anything, frankly. Like you did so well.
I will say I did cheat a little bit. The rhymes were pre-written. I'm not that good on the spot.
You know what? That's fine. That's fine. I loved it.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Okay, so for the long game, instead of the long game this week, because this is a recap, we thought that we could reflect a little bit on what we've gone through over like this season.
You might even say
And
our
we're
own
gonna,
personal long game.
yeah, a little personal long game. So let's actually start with Drew. So like, if you look back on like our journey through season 2, like what comes up for you?
So for me, season 2 really kind of solidified. I guess over the hump is kind of the best way to put it. Like season 1 was very much we're new at this, we're learning, we're figuring things out, we're finding our groove.
Mhm.
Season 2, I feel like I'm tooting our own horn, but like it really felt like a well-oiled machine. We were a lot more scheduled. We knew what we were getting into. And I mean that both from like a production level, like we as a team knew our strengths, knew our goals, knew what we were doing, but also the show was kind of more in its own swing. So it was easier to kind of ride along. There wasn't like introducing this or introducing that or getting the swing of things or learning how things work. Like we have a world we know and we have a product we know how to put together.
Mhm. No, honestly, like I totally feel that. And like that's really how I feel too. Like going through season 2, although like the way that I would describe it was more like it would be more of a marathon. Like I don't know, like when you run a marathon, like there's this moment of adaptation where you're like getting into your groove. And I feel like that's what season 2 was. Season 1, we were kind of like chicken without a head in the sense that like I don't think that we really understood what we were undertaking. And like season 2 kind of made that real, right? Because season 1, like everything for me anyway, everything was new, like podcasting, the supernatural fandom, like running social media more like professionally, engaging with listeners, like literally everything was new. So it felt like we kind of knew what we were doing, but we really had no clue what we were doing, or at least that's how I felt.
No, I
um
agree. And I think that's
right.
what the biggest change season 2 was that kind of began to shift.
Yes, exactly. Like you said, we were more established, like better oiled machine. Like we have deadlines now, like weekly deadlines for things. So like that's pretty exciting. Um, like I'm getting much more comfortable with the idea of podcasting and social media, and our TikTok is doing really well. Like
Oh,
so
damn, girl, your TikTok game is off the charts.
thank you, thank you, thank you. So like we're not like, if I can say, like if I can use the marathon analogy, like we're not running our first mile, like we're getting in marathon mode. um yeah, that's what it is. Guess season 2, basically I'm grateful for season 2. Like, we're talking about family today, and like this is our own little found family, and I'm just really really grateful for it.
No, it truly, it's I think one of the biggest changes really is going into season 2 with people who care about what we're doing.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it's one thing to be
absolutely.
like, we're gonna do this, it's for us. If anyone like gets into it, they'll jump along, it'll be great. But
Mhm.
then season 2, we really like, you all showed up for us. You're showing up for us every day on the Discord, on Twitter, on TikTok.
Yeah. Shall we move on to story time?
Let's hop on in.
Yeah. Okay. So, as we did last season, we'll be looking through the season as a whole for this story time, and again through the
Mhm.
theme of family, and specifically like how the meaning of family for Sam and Dean kind of evolves through the season. So, let's get started with Sam. Yeah. Because I would like to break all of your hearts, basically. That is my goal tonight. So if we take like a really quick step back for Sam, like he came off of season 1 having lost like the life that he thought he was going to live, right? He lost his friends, he lost his spot in school, he lost Jess, he basically lost all of his found family that he had been working on for the past like 4 years. So he's living a lot of grief. And then season 2 starts off with the loss of his father. So another kind of grief compounded onto that, right? And throughout the season, like he's having a lot of trouble finding his place in the world, right? Like Dean, who's his only blood family left, um, he's shutting him out entirely, especially at the beginning of the season, because of his own very valid reasons, right? Like I'm not criticizing Dean for it, but I'm just saying that this does have an impact on Sam. And then he's also having some trouble connecting with like Ash, Ellen, and Joe because he doesn't want to expose his psychic abilities. So like it kind of, he's in a really tough spot in terms of like building relationships. You know, he connects with Madison and then he has to kill her. And through all of this, like he's kind of longing to find like the other special children, right? And like as he finds them, he's also finding out that they're turning into killers. And then at the end, they all die. Like Sam, you know, he just now on top of it all, he has to get ready to lose Dean in a year. So for Sam, like I feel like family is just one big ball of grief this season. Like there's just no, he doesn't catch a break at all. So for found family or blood family, it's all grief for him.
Yeah, Sam really is just in a really rough spot this season. Like every time you think there's like a little bit of hope, like every character that has even like a moment of like, oh, we could be friends, dead, missing, becomes a murderer, is a werewolf. I mean, it just there is no happy ending for Sam in any of his relationships this season.
No.
And even like his ultimate goal this season, I mean, really to go real macro on this, they finally avenge their mother. They avenge Jess. They avenge John, technically, even, I guess. They kill Yellow Eyes. And even in doing so, the only thing he has to show for it now is his brother's got a ticking time before he's gone. And the few people in his life who still see him as family, who he still has trouble connecting to. And given the fact that where the season ends him, I feel like the connecting to people is going to be even harder in season 3.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like he's also turned into what he didn't want to turn, right? He did not want to be a killer. Like that was the whole point of season 2, you know, that this whole like preemptive redemption and like not wanting, you know, everybody can turn into a killer, like, and this happens to him, and this is what he didn't want to see happening. And it's just, I don't know, like it's weird because I don't think I realized like how bad it got for Sam this season, but it just did.
Yeah, I feel like episode to episode when I was going through my notes, like it never really felt like, ooh, like this is a tough one, minus a few very obvious ones, Heart. But when you really like zoom out and look at everything, I feel like Dean was better off this season in the relationship game than Sam was, which is weird because Sam's the one who's able to connect to people usually.
I know.
Like it's such a huge shift from season 1. Like you even go back to think like towards the end of the season, especially the 2-part finale, when he gets to meet other special people like him, there's some sort of bond a little bit. Like even him and Jake kind of have a moment, which of course is all of like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But you look back at the times like when he first met Andy and like he was ready to kill Andy, and Dean was the one who had to say like, you know, stop, make a friend, shut up.
Yeah, it's you know, he wasn't in the right headspace to build relationships, and whenever he tried, it just ended in heartbreak. No. Is there anything you want to bring up for Sam?
I mean, I think I've said my piece, but I just feel like even the start of the season, something that I believe was a point you brought up in the initial episode of Everybody Loves a Clown, which is the moment where he kind of like alludes to not going back to school.
I know.
And I feel like that was the moment, that was the like official shift in Sam's character from season 1 to season 2, from like sweet, innocent little Sam who is so kind and loving and, you know, just wants to save the day and go back to a peaceful life, to Hunter Sam who has trouble making relationships and is kind of a loner and is just there to get his vengeance and, you know, hunt.
I would also say that, like, especially now that he's wanted by the FBI, you know, he can't go back to law school, right?
Probably
Like
not.
that just doesn't happen when you're like a wanted criminal, like, or a suspected criminal or whatever, like, so there's grief there too for him.
Mhm.
Oh, Sam.
And it's the fact that he doesn't even react to it. Like, at no point do you ever have a moment of him going like, oh, there goes my future. He's like, or you written it off, which is even sadder.
That's very true, actually. Let's track that because we don't see him openly grieve for that.
And I don't think he's going to. I mean, maybe let's again, I can't speak ahead of the series. Unlike most of you, I'm a bit in the dark going forward, but
Yeah.
I really feel like this character development of Sam, he's kind of written off the going back to normalness,
Mm.
which is sad.
Okay, so I know.
For Bean.
What about family for Dean? And of course, for Dean, we're going to try to keep in mind that he's a queer character here. Like, what does family mean to Dean, and how does that evolve in season 2 for you?
I feel like it almost goes the other way. I feel like season 1, Dean was very antisocial and not connecting.
Mhm.
And this season's Dean was a lot more, surprisingly compared to Sam at least, understanding. And again, if we were going like 100%, he knows he's bi, we know he's bi. He is still constantly living in this like bubble of, I guess, John's shadow. He can't really get out from underneath it.
Mhm.
So he's always still playing the coy card and kind of hiding. So when people like Joe like actively try to play a role in his life, he has to almost adopt them as family for the sake of keeping them safe from the things out there that he is afraid of in himself.
Yeah.
And I also feel like, unfortunately, like the best connection that he makes this season is, I mean, it's just it's seeing his comparison to Gordon. I mean, it's this person who, goes so far as to show him like what it's like to be a hunter who is well loved, and like just to see that twist and turn this season, seeing Gordon go from being the that's what I want to be to being like that's the worst thing ever and that's what I could have been. And people look at me disapprovingly because I don't fit their standard. There it is.
I have so many thoughts about that, Drew,
Oh,
because
please go.
no, I'm just thinking about like Gordon and how, and that's kind of what I'm getting at with what I got from Dean this season, because I feel like for Dean, his relation, like you said, his relationship to family is different from Sam's in this season. Like, for Sam, it was grief. Whereas for Dean, like he spends, again, like the first half of the season, he spends almost in silence and he's like shut out. He's shutting out everybody. He's in isolation. And the other half of it is in denial that Sam could ever become quote unquote evil, right? So it's silence and then denial. And honestly, if that is not quintessentially queer, then I really don't know what is. And that's kind of both funny and sad. Anyway, how does that relate to family, I guess? Well, so the person who forces him into silence is John, like his own dad. Through like his deathbed confession, like he basically coerces him into keeping this like huge secret from Sam, a secret that he never even asked for, right? Like he wasn't like, oh, can you please tell me? He was like assaulted with the secret, right? Obviously, like this is also making me think about how Dean must have kept like his queer identity secret because of John also for so many years. And we see what happens to him during that time, during that first half of the season. Like he gets angry, he gets reckless, and he drinks. And those are all things that we really need to keep in mind for future seasons. But like you said, Dean does try to form some relationships this season. He sees Gordon as a John surrogate, like you said, and that doesn't work out very well.
No, I mean, Gordon and John seem to have more in common every time we see them, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. Let's put a pin in that. He does build a relationship with Joe, but there's some challenges there too, right? Because she has feelings for him that he cannot reciprocate. By the way, short, tiny detour, but this is what unrequited love looks like. Subtweet. Moving on. And then there's Ellen, who just cannot separate Dean from John. So like
Mhm.
basically in season 2, like Dean is trying to build those relationships and trying to build found family for himself, and it's challenging at the very least.
No, it's honestly and let's go back to Joe for a second. I feel like I harped on Gordon a little bit, but Joe is just one of those relationships where I fully believe Dean gets where Joe is coming from and
Mhm.
doesn't have the heart to break her heart by saying what he has to say. He is very much unsure how to do this because I don't think he's ever been in a scenario where he's been allowed to turn someone down. Because
Fair.
I feel like in the before times, this would have been like I guess I gotta get her drunk and take her home because that's what dad would want, because that's what men do. And this is his first time that he's able to like see this relationship flourish and go like, I don't want to ruin this by sleeping with her. Like, we're friends.
Mhm.
This is good. And whether it's through like that trope of like not figuring it out because men are dumb, or the more realistic one is he totally knows and just doesn't know how to breach the subject with her.
Mhm.
But it does start a relationship that I do hope we get to see more of.
Mhm. I mean, at the end of the day, the relationship is there. It's just that it
Mhm.
has its own challenges, like every relationship. It's just that that particular challenge is like difficult to get over, I guess, especially for Joe.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's our favorite Bobby,
The best dad, the better
the best
John,
dad.
the one who should have taken care of those boys. Oh,
Oh,
the head
yeah.
canons I have written about what should have happened with those two, with those three.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, we've talked a lot about Bobby in um All Hell Breaks Loose 1 and 2.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that we can always refer to that, but like we love Bobby, and as we know, Bobby will be part of their lives for some time, right? So we know that this is good and solid found family.
Yeah, it's honestly like I think my biggest fear is we lose Bobby at some point. Like, that is the character death I am not ready for. And
Mhm.
like, part of me wants the warding, part of me knows I can't have it. And I will forever
Mhm.
be nervous whenever someone tells me, oh, look out for an episode, because I will assume that's what's happening.
Mhm.
But no, he is just so good.
And like speaking of Bobby, because that's something that kind of comes back also throughout the season. It's like truth telling in family, right? Like and that was the tone was set for that in My Time of Dying, where like John lies to Sam and then Bobby tells him the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then John forcing Dean into silence, like we there's this idea. And what I find interesting is that you and I have both talked about truth telling as like very important, but also
Mm-hmm.
something that's difficult and something that sometimes, like, in order to spare somebody's feelings that you love, like you are going to lie to them. So like there's just like those kind of like two conflicting ideas about whether or not you should tell the truth or lie to people you love. That kind of comes back. It's a question that's asked because I don't know if the show truly answers it. I
No,
don't know
throughout
if you
this
have any thoughts
entire,
about that.
I was gonna say, yeah, throughout this entire season, it really seems to be this point, both with lies and even people's actions, of this doing the right thing by doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the lawyer who lies to to the FBI about what
Henriksen.
Hendrickson, thank you, and why his name
Yeah.
was eluding me there. To even some of the spirits, and they think they're doing God's work or the right thing,
Yeah.
but they're still murdering.
Mhm.
It kind of brings up this whole point of, are actions that are clearly bad always for bad reasons, and vice versa? Can good actions be used for evil, i.e., all of Gordon's character?
Yeah, those are questions that frankly, like the show is trying, the show is asking this. Like, I'm not sure
Yeah.
that it gives us the answers, um, or that it gives us its answers, because I'm not sure that there's truth there. But anyway.
I think that wraps up story time for me pretty well. Any
Yeah.
last thoughts before we mosey on over to our next section?
No, we can mosey.
Let's head over to critical time.
Okay. All right. So,
Would you like to get us started?
sure. Thank you. So, again, if we're looking at season 2 as a whole, for me, like one thing that's starting to emerge, and it's a question that I have, it's a genuine question that I have, and I don't have an answer. So if anybody has like thoughts or comments about that, please let me know, because I don't know how I feel about it. So one thing that's kind of starting to emerge is like the ebb and flow of like how John is discussed and portrayed. So we've talked about this in some of our episodes, but we talked about it mostly in story time. So basically, like we found in-universe ways of explaining it, but we've never really talked about it critically. And today that's what I'd like to do, because in some episodes, John is discussed very positively. You know, he's a great hunter, he's a hero, whereas in others, and I'm specifically thinking of Bloodlust and Night Shifter here, right? Like those are the ones where he's like a good guy, or like presented as a good guy. But then in other episodes, or even in the same episode sometimes, we're hearing about things that John did that are absolutely horrifying. And again, here I'm thinking about Bloodlust, where we learned that John made Dean kill his first werewolf when he was a teenager, you know, and again, Night Shifter, when Henriksen lists off like all the stuff that John did to the boys, like to basically raise them like militia. I'm also thinking about Playthings, when Dean calls John an ass for having done what he did to them, for having parentified them the way that he did. And the reason that I bring this up is because I wonder what was the intention in the writer's room. So of course, like we can't figure that out, but I wonder, because I feel like we often like look at John through our 2021 goggles, like today's values. And we know that like he's done a lot of harm because of what we know today. And we can recognize that in part because of a lot of the therapy work that our generation seems to have done a lot more of than our parents anyway.
Yep.
And so, right. And so like, I'm wondering like 14 or 15 years ago in 2006, 2007, like, how did people see John, and how, you know, what was the intention of, like, were they trying to portray him as a good guy? Were they trying to portray him as a terrible father? Because I don't know, you know, like I'm not sure that it would have been that clear to audiences back then how much harm John had done. And like, yeah, like like I said, I'm not looking for answers, but I'm just kind of wondering what your thoughts about this are.
I feel like this is one of those things that we've kind of gone back and forth on a few times, of just sort of like media has evolved, like the way certain jokes were okay because no one was really speaking out against them.
Mhm.
This falls in that same category in my mind of writing a father who was strict to the point of nearly being abusive when you really get down to the nitty-gritty, but without saying it, just means they had a rough upbringing, or they really had to fend for themselves, or look how strong they were because they had a strong role model. And I think it comes from that same place of boys will be boys, or like the male gaze. You have these boys being raised by a very manly man doing very manly, assumed manly things. And, you know, we look at it back then and you see like, oh, it's just a strict father being strict with his kids. You then need the lens of 2020 looking back and looking at the world we've grown up in, the ability to communicate with each other and realize like, hey, that wasn't all right. That was not a cool thing to be doing. That's bad. Those poor kids, they were traumatized.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was, and I still think there are times when the writers do maybe clash over that because it wasn't as set in stone as we look back at it. Like, I feel like this is one of those things where like there was a bit of like creative gray area around like how to portray John. But I think those who portrayed him in this military upbringing light didn't really realize the harm he was doing to them and how it would affect people in reality who have grown up that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rochelle, do we have time to read a comment?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. But yes, you do have time to read a comment. You've got 5 minutes left on this segment.
Okay, great. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, Rochelle is our timekeeper, and we are very thankful because that way we don't have to do it for ourselves.
I'm bad at it, so you wouldn't want me doing it.
So we're gonna read a comment from a listener right now. So I definitely always hated John because I knew he was a horrible father, but I hate him a lot more now that I'm older and understand the trauma he inflicted on the boys. I do understand that he himself had some trauma from Mary, but at some point you need to deal with that trauma for your kids, which he never did. And I think that that is truly how I feel. So like I wasn't watching Supernatural 15 years ago, so I can't really speak to how I would have felt about John, but I know that the situation that I was in, I was certainly not have seen him as badly as I do today, for a lot of reasons. But I think that that's a really important point, right? Like I do see John as a traumatized man, and I know that unhealed trauma is probably like the most destructive thing you can have in your life. And we are going to talk about that in future seasons because we see it in action. But I agree. I think that at some point, like there has to be some sort of facing that trauma and just kind of like moving on from it or healing from it as much as you can, obviously, because some of it can't be healed or can't be moved on from. But to be a better person for the people who love you and who depend on you. And I think that that's a very important point. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I again, I only have the point of view of now looking back, but I have consumed so much media over the years for so many personal and for study that I get where you're coming from. But you're right, like as you grow as a person and look at this, it only gets harder to see because you start to see the flaws. And the reality is, I think you were saying was right. Going back 15 years ago, I don't think it would have been seen the same way because that was considered normal. Like, if I can pull from personal experience ever so slightly, male presenting, grew up male at birth, everything like that. I had a father who, again, super close to love, great father, but was very much the male man, boys are boys, to the point where if I put on chapstick, I was scolded because it looks feminine. Like that was just a thing where it was like, oh, having your glossy lips, people will think you're gay. And it's like, that was a thing my father was worried about. And, you know, again, clearly he's in his own way evolved. I've come out pan and he's totally accepting, like, great, we've progressed, but that was what it was. You know, the same way John would have looked at Dean coming out and been like, hell no, no son of mine is going to be a fairy, and would have insulted him. It would have made him go hunt 2 nuns, as we've clearly covered in the past.
I know. Do you want to read the other comment, Drew? Like, let's take this from our community segment, Rochelle, in terms of time. Is that okay?
You guys, you folks.
It's okay.
We're terrible, but you love
guys
us.
is gender neutral in this case. So Drew, can you read the other comment?
Yeah, so Nell says, I think there was still this idea that dads who put in the bare minimum of effort are these great heroes. There's the idea that moms are parents and dads can babysit sometimes. So in the early 2000s, we had the single dad doing his best for these boys. He's trying his best, but dads aren't natural parents mentality, which we have moved away from. Oh my God, what a great point. I like, again, I will often commend Mary for being a single mother and doing everything she does and how impressed I am by her and how she deserves applause on a daily basis. But that is regardless of your gender. That is because you are a single parent doing your best. I think a man in the same position should get the same amount of credit and should not be treated differently or better because men aren't natural parents. That is such a BS thing that, like, I'm glad we're getting away from. But unfortunately, I still feel like is weirdly commonplace in today's society. And it is so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
again, no, you're absolutely right, Drew. And I mean, people sometimes say, "Oh, you're so brave to be doing this on your own." And at the same time, I'm like, a lot of the moms I know de facto are single parents because their spouse is not as involved as they are. They are a secondary parent rather than an actual parent. And so I think that there are a lot more single parents out there than we actually think. But that's just me. That's my reading of it. But I also agree with the comment. Like it's kind of easy to say like, oh, he's really trying his best. Like, but did he? But did he really? You know, is my
Yeah,
question.
no.
Yeah.
This is a
Okay.
safe
You know what?
space for John hate.
This is always a space for John hate. I was tagged today in a John hate comment, and I was like, "Yes, I am here for it."
People know our brand.
Yes.
Dean's by Sam thinks he's a know-it-all, and John was a terrible dad, and Bobby was a better dad.
Yeah, there you go.
Words
That's
to live
us.
by.
Let's go to the crossroads.
Yes, let's hop on down.
Amazing. Okay.
May I get started this time?
Of course. Go ahead.
Okay, I had to go back and check what I did last season. I actually kind of forgot. I had to go back and look. Do note we will be doing a poll again this time. I believe there's some more options, but
true.
same general rule. If one of us does win, the loser has to buy the winner a coffee or a tea latte, whatever we end up with. Yeah. So I think season 2 kind of delivered on what it was I wanted from season 1, which was less of this setup, like build the world, but don't like shoehorn us. Like, don't give us an entire episode explaining the rules of something. Have your adventure and sprinkle in the lore and the explanation along the way. And I think season 2, my voice is cracking here. Oh, I think season 2 did a much better job. I think my crossroads deal from season 1 of ramp things up a bit. Great. My problem, I think season 2 may have ramped things up too much to the point where they kind of left themselves at a weird dead end. Like, I feel like season 2 was written to basically end the series, like to end the arc. Like, there's no stakes right now.
Okay.
Like, I kind of get that. Yes, I've put 2 and 2 together. Season 3 is going to be the let's save Dean from the Crossroads demon before his 1 year is up. But I think like breaking a deal with a demon, which we've already done, versus avenging our entire family and everyone we love who's been murdered and solving the mystery of these special children. Like, I'm assuming more will happen. We do have 13 more seasons to explore, but I feel like you could have maybe set up season 3 with a bit more of a like I don't want to say cliffhanger. I think it's on a cheesy end on a cliffhanger, but at least more of like a setup. I honestly, like, if I put the writer hat on for a second for this one, I would give up the happily ever after ending we got at the end of season 2. And I would have had the brothers fight about Dean's choice, split up, and start season 3 separate and have to find their way back together.
Okay.
I want chaos.
I know. I'm like, you chose violence. For once, it's not me.
Violence.
Okay.
And yours?
I don't know how to respond to that. So just as a quick response, I saw, I can't remember. Oh yes. I was reading an interview with Eric Kripke not too long ago, and I will try to find the source of it, and we'll try to link it when we post all of this. But he was basically saying that like they didn't know if they were going to get renewed. So with season 2, like after season 2. So what you're saying about it kind of like tying up nicely, I think that's correct. I think that they were trying to find a way to kind of tie things up nicely at the end of season 2. And I think that choices were made afterwards once they were renewed in order to be able to keep on going, right? So like keeping Sam alive and that kind of stuff, like, or bringing him back, like that sort of thing.
Chester motto, don't stay dead.
Yes. Do you want to hear mine?
I do want to hear yours. Yes.
Okay. So last season, I made a very big deal that basically affected the whole series, right? Like I went very macro, but this season I'm gonna go like as micro as can be. And I
Okay.
will make a deal that will have almost zero consequences. So, tiny, tiny. I wish that the writers had given Sam a moment of happiness that wasn't immediately followed by pure heartbreak. Just one moment, one small thing, right? Like Dean gets Hollywood Babylon. What does Sam get? Heart.
Oh, that's so unfair. Oh, that's so
Um,
unfair. No, you can't compare those two.
and the thing
That's
is, like, I feel
illegal.
like this, and I will say this, okay? I will say this because this has to come at a price. And the price is that we have to find out what makes Sam happy. And at this point in the series, I'm not sure that even Sam knows what makes Sam happy.
Oh, I hate it.
Sam gets drunk. Sam does get drunk, but that's not happiness. I know that.
Even drunk Sam, as funny as drunk Sam was, is like depressed drunk Sam.
Drunk
Oh,
Sam is
Sam.
sassy Sam, and he was depressed. You're right.
Oh, come on. You know, if we were at a party and they were both there, they were both drunk, Dean would be like the life of the party because he has to be the center of attention, because he has to make sure people understand who he is and he's in control of his own image. And Sam would be the one like 4 beers deep in the corner, waxing poetic and like quoting like some like creepy movie and like trying to be all like philosophical, and then will eventually break down into
Oh,
tears on your shoulder.
Sam, my
And I will
tallest
not tell you
bean.
which of those I am at a party.
I mean, I've seen you at parties. You're fun. Like
You've seen me drunk at a party. You know I'm the
I
dean of the
know. I
party.
was like, I don't. This is not. No, I just.
You know, it was everyone else the mystery.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
Great. Now they know. Now they know if they get drunk with me, they'll have a good time. Darn. My secrets are out.
Yes. All right. So we still have about 10 minutes, right? Right? About 10 minutes to read some comments or chat with you guys. So like, do you guys have maybe, or do you guys, I keep saying guys, I'm so sorry. Do you folks have like your own Crossroads deal maybe for season 2? And I see a hand raised. So Rochelle, would you like to get us started?
Oh, I was just
Ooh.
gonna say, I think before I move into that, we should vote on who had better Crossroads deal.
Oh,
Oh, right. The
I
poll.
forgot
I
about
thought it
that.
was up during while we were talking. I should have said something.
Well, I'm gonna launch it now.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry if I lean really close to the screen. I have not figured out if there's an easy way in Zoom to fix the font size, but like the
Both
font is
chose
tiny.
silence. I love it. Can I pick? Can I choose one? Oh, no, I can't.
Oh,
Aw.
there seems to
very
be a
sad.
unanimous decision here.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
pretty
really?
clear.
Oh, really? Sorry, I'm just reading
Okay,
through some of
I'm
these.
closing it. Are we ready for the responses?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
let's
Go
see.
ahead.
Woo!
Woohoo! Good for you. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
So
get a
I
coffee
owe
out of
you
this.
coffee or tea,
I'm
which
so down.
actually will be my gain because I get to spend time with you.
Yay! Another little date day for us. Always happy.
Yeah, that's always very lovely.
But
Love it.
I'm glad everyone enjoyed my Crossroads deal. I thought it was
It was a really
and
good
you're
one.
right. You're right. I think it's one of those ones where like if we're looking at it from the critical side, it's very obvious why they did what they did. But I
Yeah.
like to make the Crossroads very story driven when possible. At least I
Oh,
try to
yeah,
most
of
times.
course.
Yeah. You got to pick a side on
Mhm.
those. And at the end of the day, like, you know what? I feel like I should just sort of cap up. Like, I really like the end of season 2. I think season 2 was brilliant for a lot of it. And I really like the
Mhm.
end of season 2. It felt too neat and tidy. And I think even when we discussed it like previously, I kind of said like I'd rather either like really tie it up with a bow and then let the drama of everything happen like in the season, or start
Mhm.
super chaotic and let the season kind of like bring things back to a neutral game.
Okay. Yeah, no, honestly, I think that you're right. Like ideally, I think I would have wanted a bit more of a chaotic ending. So I agree with that. Like my chaos demon was not satisfied with that ending.
Yeah. I'm listening, but I'm also going through the comments a little bit, and I like the fact that my description of drunk Sam is tied up with Nell's perfectly. And I do agree.
Okay.
I'm curious, Tony, because it's something I've seen like a lot in the fandom. Is early season Sam is kind of lovable, and then later on people have more trouble with him. And I mean, there's a part of me that like I love Sam. He's adorable. He's fun. He's sweet. He's kind of the innocent one up until the end of the season, and he will always forever be my other Dean because of my Gilmore Girls background. But I'm very intrigued to see what shift in Sam we get that brings this abrupt change to the fandom. I'm seeing faces on the chat. I'm just like,
It's so
something's
hard.
gonna
Okay,
happen.
you have no, I mean, you can imagine, like, I'm just trying to imagine our listeners like listening to our recordings and like listening to you, like giving your headcanons and your thoughts about what might happen in the future. And like, either crying or screaming at you. And like, imagine having to live react to that to him while on FaceTime. Like, and I'm just like,
Yeah, no, I
okay.
always say Mary has really like, if you're not already watching our little post show wrap up episodes, like she has really mastered the not giving things away but making it very clear there's a reaction to be had. I don't think you've ever made me go like one way or the other on something, but you've always had me go like, I'm on a nerve of some sort. Where's it gonna go?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I have
Um,
the worst poker face, right? So like when there's something, but I try to just like smile.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's start that again. If there's anything that you'd like to share, and if you'd like to share, with your own voice, that would be really lovely. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can either like throw it in the chat or use the raise hand function. We can do that. Or if not, we also have some questions that we might throw out to the group and see what answers we get. So
While we're waiting, I'm reading through a little bit, and I gotta say, yeah, I can kind of see the self-righteousness of Sam becoming a problem down the road, especially given what I do know about Dean's future in the series and his relationship to Angels. I feel like those are the wrong words to use, but you know what I meant.
Angel. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Oh, Tony, I don't like that. That's bad. No, Dean, bad Sam.
Just so that everybody is aware, like, he makes some choices that hurt Dean in many ways. Dean's my comfort character, so anyone who hurts him is thumbs down. And yeah, we will get to that. And again, like they both have unhealed trauma, and so like they can become very destructive, each in their own way. And so we are going to see that. Sorry.
And Kim points out that it's season 6 where we start to dislike Sam. So I'm very intrigued to see leading up to season 6 and then going into season 6, if I keep that in mind, where that goes.
Okay, so Rochelle first, and then after that, Nell has a season 2 Crossroads deal. So I'd love to hear that.
Oh, I'd love to hear Nell's first, and then we can ask mine later for sure.
Okay, let's do that then. Rochelle, can you unmute Nell?
Oh, wait, there we go.
Oh, great.
Right, so my season 2 Crossroads deal is Gordon.
Yes, please
I've
tell
talked about
us.
this on Twitter. I've talked about this on Discord, and I have a lot of feelings about it. But
Yeah.
I dislike that they make Gordon an antagonist so early on.
Oh, that is good.
Would like Gordon to be played out more over the course of a season or two as sort of a reflection of Dean, a little bit, of this character who is on a quest for revenge, and originally seems like a really good ally for them. He's someone they
Mhm.
can call on and something they can rely on, but over time his need for revenge and drive for revenge pulls him down a darker path. And this is something I want that to be a more emotional shift, because I want him to be someone that the brothers rely on, and then someone who eventually his need for revenge drags him down a really dark path, and they eventually need to make a choice between
Oh,
Gordon and some vampires, maybe vampires who maybe aren't doing anything wrong. They need to make this choice,
Mhm.
because I think it would make Dean, I think it would, there's this thing with Dean and revenge in the first couple of seasons where
yeah.
he's on this quest for revenge that's not even really his quest for revenge. And we see it sort of pulling him in this really dark
Yeah.
direction. And this is something, Drew, that you will see Dean struggle with throughout the whole series, is this sort of pull towards the darkness of revenge. So I would like us to see that path mirrored in Gordon's, and thus Dean make a choice after seeing what happens to Gordon, to conscious decision to turn away. And this would like change the whole show, I know, but
Oh, but yeah, totally. I'm down with that.
turn away from revenge because he's seen what happens to people who get consumed by it. So that
Oh, that
is
is so good.
what I want. And if I had to give something up, I think I would give up tying up this season with a pretty bow,
Mhm.
because
There
it
you
gets
go.
tied up so neatly, and I would be okay if we had a little more mess involved with it, if we got this other
Chaos.
path,
Mhm.
because we have too many characters who are Black men who become antagonists really early on. And it's
Yep.
fine to have Black characters who are antagonists, but you also have to have some that are protagonists.
Mhm.
And I think we need a character who you really feel some sympathy for, because I think Gordon is a character that we really could have felt some true sympathy for. Like, this horrible thing happened, he got torn down this terrible path, and then we see it destroy him over time. I think which is basically what happened to John, but we don't feel bad for John because we don't see John's mental state in the same way, and because I think John makes more conscious choices to make bad decisions and also neglects his children. But I'd like, that's what I want. I want Gordon
Yeah.
to be a bigger player, and I want
Okay.
us
I
to
like that. I really, really like that. And you're right. I feel like the point was made with Gordon, but again, kind of like too quickly.
Mm.
And I think you're
Yeah.
right. That would have paid off so much better, even if on the smallest scale, we got like 3 interactions with him this season. One where he's clearly a hunter and he's good. One where there's like a questionable moral, but he's still ultimately the right. And then finally like, you've gone off the deep end. This is not cool. You are like abusing your power type thing. I think would have made for a much better arc. And I think even extending it over a season or two, mwah, beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, so I I echo that,
I was here,
Rochelle,
so
in the
don't worry.
chat. Like, can we redo the poll? Because like I want to change my vote. Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. I think that it also works, with trying to play for the sympathy that people may or may not feel for John. Um, because like, feeling sympathy for John is the challenging thing. Whereas I think that if the story was told differently, if it was told from the point of view of John instead of the point of view of his children, it might be easier to have sympathy for him. And that's kind of partly why I'm a little apprehensive about the Winchesters. And I don't want to start that conversation here, but I think that it would be easier to have empathy for John if we were to look at his story specifically from his point of view, um, not saying that, we would, but it would be easier than if, we're kinning his children that he has abused his entire life. So just putting that out there. So I think that like seeing Gordon and rooting for him would be very confusing then for the viewer to kind of like put that next to like how they feel about John. So I think that that would be really great to confuse the viewer in their sympathies. Yeah. Wow. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add? Because I think we are starting to close in terms of time.
Yeah, I'm getting the look from Rochelle that time is running up. I've been seeing a lot of
Absolutely.
responses though to the favorite episode in the chat, and I've been going through and I'm seeing a
Yeah.
lot of people lean on Night Shifter, which I was having trouble picking one or the other, and Night
Ah.
Shifter was one of my top two. I love
Shifter.
shapeshifters. I've said it. I love shapeshifters. They're so good.
That's very true. I don't even know what my favorite episode would be, frankly. Do I have one for season 2? I can't even remember all of them right now.
I'm using my poem to like remind me what the villains were to go back to the episodes.
No. Okay, no. For me, I don't know. Because there's like those real this is hard.
As much as I like Night Shifter, and it's one of my favorites, I think if I had to ultimately pick one for this season,
Mhm.
Hollywood Babylon.
Hollywood Babylon is fantastic. I also loved
Happy Dean.
I loved
Happy
Tall
Dean.
Tales so much, and
Oh
Houses
my
of the
God.
Holy too. I have rediscovered Houses of the Holy this time around. So yeah, there you go.
And again, a phenomenal episode, and I think just a great, like, just spot on episode overall. So yeah, season 2 really didn't have any real like suckers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we just gotta, yes, Nicole, absolutely agree. Like Hollywood, like Houses of the Holy post finale is absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah. I'm just gonna leave it at that, or I'm gonna start crying again. Yeah, so if we're all done, we can do our outro.
Yeah, I'm getting the hint. I'm getting the hint from Rochelle's comments that she wants us to do so.
Great. So let me read we're going to change our outro in season 3, but let's just finish it off the way that we started off season 2. One last time. You've been listening to Carrying Wayward, a supernatural podcast produced by Rochelle Castellano, hosted by Drew Schulman and myself, Marie Vigourou. Thank you to our bunker patron, Katira, for her generous support. This week, we'd like to thank everyone who was able to make it to our live show for their participation. Thank you, guys. We love you. Gender neutral guys. Help us keep the conversation going. You can send us a voice recording at carryingwayward@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and YouTube using @carryingwayward, and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to join our Patreon for perks and extra content. Our October live event will be a live watch of Bad Day at Black Rock on October 28th. You can use the link in all of our social media bios or go directly to patreon.com/carryingwayward. We'll be taking a short 1-week break and we'll be back on November 5th. Season 3, Episode 1, The Magnificent Seven. See you then.
And carry on, our wayward friends.